podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I think every 5 years you give me an interview.
Do I?
2014. उसके बाद 2014 when you were in Amethi, I tailed you. Then 2019 I tailed you.
I think in 2014 you were a bit circumspect.
Huh.
You have seen so many politicians say so much to media about their own achievements or possibilities of achievements that I still remember that look that you gave me in Amethi, where you were like, yep, I've seen that look before of somebody who's facing abject defeat but is insisting that they will win. So I think you were being kind to somebody you think was whimsical about their political opportunities.
Okay, that was a lot of analysis you did with that pehla
One
look. So my first impression at that time, though I'd seen you before in
Thankfully, you didn't have the bechari marne wali hai look.
Nahi.
Because there were many people who
Yeah.
were of that opinion, and many who had, in fact, they have this whole demeanor as though आपकी कोई शहादत होने वाली है
Yeah,
या आपका कोई
sacrificial
जनाजा
हाँ.
उठने वाला है. So mercifully, you didn't have that.
No. My first reaction was that not of what people were saying, that sacrificial lamb. My thing was, oh my God, she's here for a long term. Because when the suitcases were coming on the conveyor belt, I was standing next to you and your suitcase came and before mine. So I offered to help and you said, no, I will pick up my own case. So I thought, okay, refreshing. She doesn't have, a legion of
litany of people.
Yeah, helping you with the suitcase.
I never did.
You didn't.
I didn't have it in my media career. I didn't fancy it in politics. I think that it's one, if you need to be managed, then how will you manage the aspirations or the challenges of others? So I have been a lone wolf would be too much, but yeah.
Even in 2019, when I came to that pokey little flat you had above those shops at the bottom, and then you had that, and it was so ordinary, if I may. I'm not trying to say that you didn't have a luxurious apartment or you didn't even have a well-appointed apartment. It was just
in
total.
2014 got a space, and remember at that time Sonia Gandhi was UPA president and Akhilesh had the reins in Uttar Pradesh along with Mulayam Singh ji, and nobody was even willing to offer us any space.
No,
to
2019
live
I'm
in.
talking
Yes,
about.
that's right. 2019 was a leg up. In 2014, we got 3-4 rooms above a cement godown. We had no wherewithals, we had no furniture, nothing. So there was a group of women, all of us stacked up in that little godown, so-called apartment. And I remember most of us, when we came back, we call it home, when we used to come back after our campaign, it was a 2022 long day campaign. And there was some of us who would wake up the next day, kind of, I mean, I still have a mark where some insect would bite us or you would fall sick, suddenly come up with a fever because you got some infection.
Yeah.
There was not a thing available, not a single hotel there, which is extraordinary for a place which has had 40 years of a Gandhi rule. And no hotel, no guest house, no rest house, no sarkari guest house, where, even the DM could functionally possibly work out of. There was no collector's office. There was no fire station there. No hospital had a CT scan machine. In fact, the first X-ray machine that came into a district hospital came after we intervened. We had no dialysis center. We have no police line there. So there were many firsts in Amethi.
Yeah.
So where I would live was the least of the problems. 2019 was a leg up because by then there was also a sense of fear in 2014. कि भाई आप तो लड़के चले जाओगे, उसके बाद हमारे पीछे लोग पड़ेंगे कि हाउ डेयर यू सपोर्ट द बीजेपी. तो खौफ का माहौल वहाँ पर 2014 में था, which आपने भी देखा, you were witness to it.
Yeah.
So for us to be so belligerent कि हम लड़ने आए हैं और we are here to stay, people took it with a pinch of salt. 19 was a bit different because by then I had spent 5 years there. And I had already told people that there's no guarantee who the BJP candidate will be in 19 because that's a parliamentary board decision. But by then people साहस मिला लोगों को कि ठीक है दीदी, मेरे घर के ऊपर वाला जो घर है या मेरे गोडाउन के ऊपर वाला जो 2-3 कमरा है वो आपको किराए पे हम दे सकते हैं। तो 19 में सीमेंट के गोडाउन से हटकर हम किसी दुकान के ऊपर वाले जो 2-3 कमरे हैं वहाँ पे रहने की
जनरेटर
हमारी
के fumes, I was like, how are you living here?
But that is a life
Yeah.
that people in Amethi were leading. Why should mine be any different?
Yeah.
I think that for many journalists, it was a shocker.
Yeah.
Because the presumption in Lutyens, or for that matter, journalists around the world, there were some who came from far and wide, was that, अरे यहाँ पे तो गांधी खानदान इतने साल रहा है, तो यहाँ पे तो मतलब 5-star accommodations होंगे, facilities होंगे. I remember one news channel which did an interview of mine in the middle of a ramshackle home in 19. The editor said कि घर मिट्टी का है लेकिन टॉयलेट मोदी ने बाहर पक्का बना दिया है. You know, so that contrast was more than visible for people.
You know, I've covered elections in Amethi for several years. Every time I would go, you know, Lucknow se niklo. And I've said this before on shows and things, that there wasn't a single place you could stop for a loo break. Yep. Women
it is very difficult for people to...
They don't understand it, you know, and nobody used reporting it, mind you. I've written it, I've reported it also. Women reporters who got out from Lucknow to go to Amethi would have to come back. To Lucknow, right? So,
and you have to contextualize for people that Amethi is 1.5 hours away from Lucknow.
Yeah.
So you would have to come all the way there, operate the whole day, and then go back.
Yeah. So you shoot before sun goes down, you shoot. And for a television journalist, that was important.
Because
and
there would be no electricity. So there are pictures of me standing atop a gadi. And people with their torches out and some candles out and me addressing a crowd. So somebody called me and said, really?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think they don't have electricity? I said, they genuinely don't.
And for women, because there are no loo stops and there's no loo in Amethi also, there was nothing. You know, you couldn't go just anywhere. So you basically don't eat breakfast, unlike the other male journos who would tank up on their breakfast and their coffees. And we can't, right? Because you don't know.
I think what is significant is that everybody knew, nobody wrote about it.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So when you're saying that foreign journalists came, foreign journalists were not writing that. Like, for example, when I went, I don't remember which election it was, they would keep saying, yeah, 4 kasturba bane, 2 kasturba bane. I said, what is kasturba bane hai? What are kasturbas? Those were women's hostels. So there was a women's hostel, the kasturba, in the middle of marshy land.
It would be inhabitable.
Yes, exactly.
It would have no furniture where you could possibly operate.
Nothing.
From,
there was nobody
study
inside
from, it. Or if it's a hostel to sleep in.
No.
Nothing.
And then this was in a marshy land. So, pehli baat to you can't access it because of the marsh. And women staying there. It was a women's hostel. उधर से निकल के वो कस्तूरबा से अगर हॉस्टल है वो निकल के how will she go to her campus or college?
It took me a while to tell people that genuinely believe me that people were being robbed of their lands by the Gandhi family. The idea that
they could do
at
some
the
wrong.
head of a foundation, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Vadra could mandate usurping of lands of farmers in Amethi was foreign. Because people say, अरे इतना पैसा है, क्या करेंगे ये वाली ज़मीन लेके? But they took land in the name of industrialization. There was land in one area which was for minority girl students. They took over that land to open their own office. Girls who went against the family and did dharna against them were imprisoned. Young school girls from the minority community. So the whole concept that was sold about the Gandhi family was that they're benevolent, was that they're so cultured they could possibly never loot, was that they're so erudite, that they're so well read, that how could they possibly have a disconnect with the needs of the people and not serve it. I think that my Amethi journey contrasted that. And suddenly, a lot of people found voice. Journalists, yes, were compelled to then convey that voice. But those voices existed. They never had an outlet. So people were, there's one Samrat Cycle Zameen, which is something that I've brought up. many a times in Parliament. In the 80s, that land was procured from farmers. They were given the hope कि इधर factory लगाएंगे. Some bicycle manufacturer was called and then told कि आप इसमें factory लगाओ. Like clockwork, the guy declares bankruptcy कि हम नहीं चला सकते. And like clockwork, a foundation which is not supposed to do any commercial activity takes over the land. So when I go to Amethi, the first question I ask is the foundation can never do commercial activity. How is a land which is deemed for commercial purposes taken up by the foundation? It's been under lock and key. I was told, अरे यहाँ ऐसे ही होता था. And I found many such parcels of land belonging to people. For instance, there is a promise given 30-40 years ago कि भाई हम यहाँ पे अस्पताल बना देंगे, परिवार को ज़मीन दे दो. परिवार means the Gandhi family. They take the ज़मीन. Munshiganj guest house is there. They never build the medical college. So when Prime Minister Modi starts his endeavor of building medical colleges across all districts, I go and I request, ki, can we get one for Amethi? You look at the records. That land was taken for $600.
Huh?
Yes, I've said this in Parliament. For 600 rupees, a 30-acre piece of land taken on rent. The family builds itself a nice, lovely complex there, but never builds the medical college for which they took the land.
Interesting.
My issue is, how much is too much? I mean, you took over so much property in Delhi, in Bombay. Amethi के गरीब लोगों को तो छोड़ देते हैं.
I'm going to come back to Amethi. But first, let's do the biggest stories of the day because I have you here today.
Which stories are those?
So, several of them. Firstly, just an hour before we are shooting this, it's just come out that Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge is probably the Prime Minister candidate for the India Alliance.
Are you sure?
I believe Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal proposed the name. And Kharge ji is saying कि पहले election जीतना हमारा goal है. उसके बाद प्राइम मिनिस्टर का देखेंगे बट apparently that seems to be a consensus. Nobody objected to it.
So you have not said that Mrs. Gandhi has said, my son hereby abdicates the throne. My daughter will never be in the race for prime minister. Here is Mr. Kharge and now forever shall he reign as president and forever shall a non-Gandhi always be a PM aspirant. Has that happened yet?
Well, not exactly.
Then take it with a pinch of salt.
No, but they did nominate
who's the they?
The Gandhi family. They had Narasimha Rao.
Was Narasimha Rao
Manmohan Singh.
happy nomination or a political majburi?
Well, whatever the...
Or Manmohan Singh ji for that matter. Look back at history. Were any of them?
तो ये भी तो मजबूरी होगी ना जो खरगे जी को कर रहे हैं.
I cannot say anything till an official announcement is made. But what is interesting for you and for what you have highlighted is that the name did not come as a proposal from Mrs. Gandhi. It came from parties which are not Congress party members, or for that matter, Congress party leadership. It came from outside.
Maybe that was deliberate.
Maybe, but till such time you do not have Mrs. Gandhi say, my son, like I said, hereby abdicates the throne. My daughter, my son-in-law, my grandchildren have no claim to the throne. Please take it with a pinch of salt.
But उन्होंने तो कभी कहा ही नहीं ना कि हम प्रधानमंत्री बनना चाहते हैं.
I think that you've had enough discussions in the studio which also alludes to how they ran governments. I mean, the 10 years of UPA was more than sufficient to certify.
So there's no question of abdication. There's nothing about...
But the difference is right now you have two people who are in the race already.
Who are the two people? For
the
India
brother
Alliance?
And the sister. No. I'm saying that... So what is interesting for me is that if you're saying that we are breaking away from the tradition of dynasty, have you had that declaration by Sonia Gandhi yet? You haven't had it.
But maybe she doesn't need to.
I think in contrast, you have had Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, who was literally on the floor of the house, accepted that it's impossible to defeat Prime Minister Modi. So with certain defeat before them, is that why there's a discussion on Kharge ji's name? And Kharge ji, being the astute politician that he is, has said, नहीं abhi nahi, जीतने के बाद देखा जाएगा.
But also, in the journal circles, it's become very interesting. Ki,
don't believe anything in the journal circles. Most of them are disconnected from realities.
But regarding the BJP,
possibly they are selling some new fancy idea
हाँ.
that they fancy is, you know, the show
अरे
short
कुछ नहीं ना,
strategy.
journalists these days have no clue, especially regarding your party. एक नाम नहीं पक्का हुआ था कि कौन.
मुझे लगता है दिल्ली शहर के बारे में कुछ खुशफहमियाँ लोगों का, मैं इस शहर में पली बड़ी हूँ, एक खुशफहमी है कि पूरी की पूरी दिल्ली ए पॉलिटिकल है. पॉलिटिकल दिल्ली दिमाग वालों की है, सामान्य दिल्ली दिल वालों की है. और दिमाग वाली इस दिल्ली में जो राजनीति से भरी हुई है, वहाँ पे 4 चीज़ों को मैंने देखा है लाइफ में, मेरे 10 साल के अनुभव में एज एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर, और मैं तीसरा टर्म है मेरा एज एन एमपी. मैं 2 बार राज्यसभा की सांसद रह चुकी हूँ. आपके पास आपकी पीठ पे छुरा भोंकने का भी दुश्मन नहीं आता, दोस्त आता है. यहाँ पे रिश्ते बनते हैं जब चाय पिलाई जाती है, मीठी मीठी बातें होती हैं, रिश्तों की दुहाई दी जाती है, दोस्तियाँ होती हैं. लेकिन उस पूरे चक्रव्यूह में सपोजिशंस बहुत रहती हैं. तो कल लग गया तो लग गया. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उस दिल्ली में अगर मोदी मंत्र, अगर एंगेजमेंट और कम्युनिकेशन को आप देखें तो बुरा नहीं है. बिकॉज इन दीज हैलोड हॉल्स ऑफ पावर many careers came to die because they did not understand the complexity of this Dimagwali Delhi. And I think what Prime Minister is doing now, and because he has seen Delhi up close, not only as an administrator, not only as a chief minister, he's also seen it as somebody who built the organization. He realized the pitfalls of it. And that is why when I see a lot of grassroots leaders find a voice, new faces find a voice, it is of great, I think, comfort to कार्यकर्तास. ठीक है, नाम चला रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब जर्नलिस्ट को कुछ पता नहीं.
हाँ, that's also true that it took a while, I think, for Delhi journos to figure out that they are inconsequential to the system.
No, I don't think that they are inconsequential in
Those-
terms of communication to the rest of the country. On issues of
And power
domestic and
struggles.
international import, the media does play a very significant role. But many people within the media do not limit themselves to reportage. They become power brokers. And I think that is what Prime Minister Modi has broken. It's not only the power brokers in the media, but brokers of all kind have been shoved out of the system because the people of our country deserved better.
Let me come to the other news story which happened, which is of the suspension. I think 141, the last score that I heard, 142 MP suspended. Now, your party is being accused by the opposition of being dictatorial. Harsimrat Badal even said that
My party cannot suspend anybody.
Well-
It's the Speaker of the House
Huh.
and the Vice President of India who can.
But it's being said that you built
So it makes for great headlines that BJP is dictatorial, but anybody who understands parliamentary procedure knows there's not BJP that announces people are suspended.
the successful running of the house, both of houses, is the job of the ruling party.
Agreed.
And that has not been happening. And it's
Because I think that the opposition, and this is my personal feeling, the opposition is hell bent on ensuring that there's a competitive spirit about who can angle that I am more anti-Modi than my colleague within my same party. So today, when the Vice President of India, the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, announces that these are the procedures which cannot be violated as a parliamentarian, after knowing those procedures, you still go ahead and violate it. That means you're being mindful of the rules that you're breaking. You're also mindful of the consequences that will occur. Now, this is not a classroom. This is the Parliament of India. There is a historical context to every activity that is undertaken in Parliament. There is a precedent that you set, not only from a domestic perspective, but also an international parliamentary perspective of how business in a house is conducted. We are a part of many such international unions or associations or organizations that study the functionality of our parliament. Can you have the Vice President of India or the Speaker of the House announce a set of rules and regulations and procedures in terms of your parliamentary engagement and willfully have parliamentarians break those rules and then expect no consequence for it from the Speaker of the House? Because there's a precedent that you're setting.
But these were the
I'm
norms
of the
which were anyway
opinion.
happening, right? Getting into the well of the house, placards.
So
It's been there
so
for
if you say
decades.
that I want to ensure that there is dysfunctionality because I'm going to be anarchist, and people before me in parliaments before me were allowed it, and hence I shall also break the rule. The question is how long, how much, and how far. So it is the not only the responsibility but also the right of the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and the speaker. What shocks me is not the juvenile reaction of the former Congress president. The fact that
Which one are you
even
referring to?
there is one who is of substance from an Amethi perspective, which is Rahul Gandhi. I could never imagine the depths of depravity when you not only urge a fellow parliamentarian to mock the Vice President of India, because it's not an individual, it's an institution.
Kalyan Banerjee is mocking,
Yes.
mimicking.
And that is supposed to be a very erudite, legal. On the steps of the parliament, you mock the Vice President of India, you think it's funny. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi films it, encourages it. Now, there is a decorum which is expected of us as parliamentarians. I've had issues on which I have not, in the 10 years of the UPA, I had served a few years in the opposition. But never in my life had I, as a parliamentarian, mocked the chair, mocked the speaker, or use words that brought disrepute to the chair. Because that, like I said, is not an individual, that's an institution. So I always thought that maybe this is the end of juvenile politics by Mr. Gandhi. But to willfully stand there and encourage disrespect towards the Vice President of India, now that's a new low that he has hit. Kalyan Banerjee included, but every parliamentarian who stood there and laughed and encouraged Kalyan Banerjee to humiliate the Vice President's office is equally culpable.
And there's
So
been
in
no
the
apology
House,
as yet.
in the House, can you expect them to do better? This is the same set of people. Mr. Venugopal was standing there and laughing. For what?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not an individual, that's an institution. And then can you expect better when they're in the House? They pay no heed.
So, what is worrying though is that what happened outside is, of course, that a constitutional post was mocked. That
Can you
is
deny
bad.
that constitutional post the right then to deliver justice?
And then there is this which happened, which is more suspensions.
They
It seems
stood
like
on
everything is
stood on the table and threw a book at the chair. If you remember,
This is not this
Harivansh ji,
incident. Yeah.
yes, the deputy chairperson, they were slamming books on the table. They were chucking papers at the chair.
This is the earlier parliament building.
Yes, but it's the same opposition.
Yeah.
Same members who are playing truant.
So Harsimrat Badal says that this new parliament building is a graveyard of democracy because
It may be a graveyard for those who consider themselves opposition. But why should it be a graveyard of democracy? Who uses those words? It's not as if the BJP always had a winning streak. We were on the losing side as well. But did we, as political activists, ever demean our institutions? You can question process, procedures, and ask. But can you say that the parliament is not to be given due respect only because you're not in power?
So they keep bringing up Mr. Arun Jaitley and Ms. Sushma Swaraj's statement saying these kind of protests are part of democracy where you can protest in
Is
parliament.
throwing a paper at the chair. Has Sushma Swaraj, Arun Jaitley ever thrown a crumpled up, balled up piece of paper at the chair? No. Have Arun Jaitley, Sushma Swaraj ever banged books on the table of the Rajya Sabha? No. Have Arun Jaitley or Sushma Swaraj ever mocked the Vice President of India on the steps of Parliament? No. Have Arun Jaitley or Sushma Swaraj used language within Parliament which brings disrepute to parliamentary procedures as such? No.
Do you think this was done deliberately
Of course
to
it was.
invite suspension? Because
Yes.
that seems to have united.
But that's more than obvious.
Okay.
You know the rules. You know the consequence of breaking it. If I broke a rule today, do you think that the Speaker or the Vice President of India will have any mercy for me? Not at all. Because they cannot show a precedence where I can, let's say, break a law or a procedure and then not invite the wrath of the chair.
But this has united the India alliance where they were...
Can you imagine breaking the law unites them?
Point.
Bringing disrepute to Parliament unites them. Mocking the Vice President of India unites them. The last time there was an election for the President's office to humiliate the President of India, that united them.
Okay. The comment that was made.
Yes,
by
they were
Aditya.
united in their attempt to humiliate the President of India. So what you're telling me is that they come together only when they have to demean Indian institutions. Otherwise, they never come together.
Were you in Parliament when those two people jumped into the...
I was in the foyer, yes.
You
And
were
I
in the
walked in immediately after the House was called to order.
Why is there no... I mean, I'll get into the other issues, but why is there no drill conducted to
I
exit
can't
from...
because there is a investigation already underway.
No,
And
I mean drill
Parliament right
conducted
now
to
is-
exit from the... When such kind of an attack happened, we saw people just sauntering around, hands in the pocket, shuffling. When there is an attack, it's quite clear and everybody's wits should have been there and they should have evacuated, they should have left from the exits, but they were just hanging around.
I think, like I said, the procedures which are now to govern conduct in such circumstances is something which is under the aegis of the
Okay.
Speaker of
So you haven't had those
office.
kind of drills
My issue
before?
was that when we went back immediately, people like me, Praladji, all of us, at 2 o'clock, we reassembled. It was essential at that time to show democracy at work. It was essential at that time show that there is no fear. That whatever has happened in the chamber does not desist us to come back to that very hallowed hall and gather again so that business can be conducted by the Speaker. The Speaker expects of all of us that we contribute and support him. If I today, in this interview, start questioning processes, procedures while Parliament in session, while investigation is ongoing, while the Speaker himself has said, no matter what your political organization, everybody needs to contribute so that systems can be bettered. I would digress from my responsibility then. My responsibility as a parliamentarian and as a minister was, it does not matter where I am, how I am, what my concerns are personally. I need to be in that house when the bell rings and we assemble again, so that when citizens of the world see the Indian Parliament, they don't see empty benches, they see resolute parliamentarians irrespective of their politics standing there.
So is it so difficult or is it so wrong for the opposition to demand that the Prime Minister or the Home Minister come and give a statement? Why not?
I think that the Speaker has already spoken on this issue. He's also invited dialogue on the issue. The challenge that the opposition is afflicted with is that those institutions, processes that do not converge under the Prime Minister's office but actually are the hallmarked intervention of the Speaker. They want the Prime Minister to speak for the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Constitutionally,
Yeah.
can the Prime Minister speak for the Speaker's chair, which is over and above
The
all
Home Minister
politics,
can't...
which is over and above even parliamentary security, is under the aegis of the Speaker.
But the Delhi police
Can
does
they
come.
speak on the Speaker's behalf? They can't. The Speaker can, but you deny the Speaker the right to conduct deliberations and dialogues.
Okay. So
Can I speak for the President of India? I can't. Can I speak for the Vice President of India? I can't. Can I speak for the Speaker of the Lok Sabha? I can't. It's not as if the opposition doesn't know it. They know it. So I think that when your opposition is reduced to just headline hunting, and when you want to ensure that there is this cantankerous intervention of always creating some kind of friction or conflict, then you're not serving the purpose of finding a solution or serving the purpose of wanting a dialogue.
it's just for disruption.
The major aim is that how do I target Modi?
You really think it was for Modi?
It is. Because like I said, the Speaker of the House is over and above all politics. It is under his authority. he has the authority and he has fulfilled his responsibility of speaking on the issue, inviting dialogue. You deny him that right by insisting that the Prime Minister speaks.
Okay. I'll rewind a bit for a couple of days before all this happened, which was that where you said that about the menstrual cycle leave.
Yes.
That whole thing, it was so interesting because you said, and I'm going to quote, you said menstrual cycles are not a handicap. And I was like, yeah, yes. Because I got into the workforce.
I could have said much more.
You could.
I didn't. Because the gentleman who asked the question never intended to find a solution for women.
So it was Professor Manoj Kumar Jha, and he says, will the Minister of Women and
Just
Child
allow
Development
me
be
to
pleased
just
to
look at
state?
this. Can you look at part C of the question?
Yeah, whether the policy contains provisions to promote and provide for menstrual hygiene among LGBTQIA community.
Now tell me, the LGBTQIA community that the honorable member wanted a response for, which gay man without a uterus has a menstrual cycle? So the question was intended either to shock or to provoke or to attract attention, which it did attract attention.
Yeah.
It did shock many people. It did provoke a controversy. But the question in itself indicates to you what the intent is.
You also said as a woman who's menstruating.
Yes, but like I said, if I talk now outside Parliament and I have to reflect on it as a female professional, the LGBTQIA plus, he wants me, Manoj Jha wants me to provide an answer about how can I provide for their menstrual hygiene.
For gay men.
Which, for gay men, is it applicable? The second issue is, he says in his communication that Bihar has a policy of menstrual leave.
Which is not here visible.
He said this on the floor of the House.
But didn't
that-
mention it in.
Yeah. So if you look at this question alone, allow me to go back to it. If you go back to this question alone,
Whether the government is planning to roll out.
there is a policy which is, if you look at my answer, it talks
Yeah.
about a policy which is available on a website. The issue is, in his verbal intervention, he says Bihar has a policy. He insinuates as though Bihar is an overarching policy which is applicable to the private sector. His question to me is,
Bihar doesn't?
doesn't have a private sector policy. The chair can pull him up for lying or insinuating.
Misrepresenting.
Yep.
Okay.
But what measures are in place to make compulsory for employers to grant leave? So Bihar may have in 1992 a policy for paid leave for women in government. Does not have it in the private sector.
Huh.
I've never had, and in my experience, I'm not the health minister. What did I say that day? I said, one, it is not an handicapped position that women have. Somebody said, आपने handicap क्यों बोला? I said, आप अंग्रेजी की कोई डिक्शनरी उठा के देख लीजिए, उसका दूसरा सिनोनिम impediment है. तो मैंने वो दोनों शब्द का इस्तेमाल किया, मैंने disability नहीं बोला इसको. फिर उन्होंने कहा, आपको पता नहीं है कि पेन होता है. अच्छा, interestingly, it's all men. Somebody, in fact, you tweeted about it. Some gentleman wanted to take out my uterus because I had such a position.
He
Now,
said, actually.
I take umbrage
that
on
was
it for
twist.
3 reasons.
Oh.
One, the whole movement of feminism was so that women can have their opinion voiced themselves, no matter what the consequence. So for somebody to say, I'm a feminist man, and because you have an opinion which is different from mine, your uterus should be taken out, is an oxymoron unto itself.
Yeah, God help his family and those who are working in his organization.
The fact that he can do it with impunity with somebody on a constitutional post means there is much more that he could possibly do with people around him,
Yeah.
working with him or within his family. That itself is a frightening proposition for those women.
Yeah.
But what is the issue at hand? I have unionized in media as a professional many issues as a writer, as a producer, as an allied worker for people who work behind the screen. And our intent for 25 years has been, as members of a union then, that we don't want to create new challenges for women where they get harassed,
Yeah.
or for that matter, where they are getting discriminated against. So imagine when a parliamentarian tells me that mandate a national policy, and I tell them that मैं वो मंत्री नहीं हूँ, वो health minister है.
Yeah.
लेकिन when you say that mandate leave across all segments, what does it do? For you to mandate and make it lawfully implemented, people have to report implementation.
Yeah.
Now imagine a scenario in a private sector, okay, where if somebody has to implement it, your HR guy has to know, your accounts guy has to know. Why should a woman's menstrual cycle be known to an employer? Imagine if it's a single woman who chooses not to take those leaves that are so-called proposed to be granted. Can you imagine the harassment that woman will have to face?
Yeah.
Third,
especially on the work floor, right?
can you imagine?
3 days
We are
not
saying
being
more
there.
and more women have to come and join the workforce, especially on factory floors, corporate houses. Imagine a floor with 20,000 women.
Yeah.
So we are creating new barriers for discrimination. What this gentleman, when he asked me the question, never told anybody. In fact, what never came out in any critique was that under the Occupational Safety and Health Standards rules of 2020, medical leave is already provided for.
Yeah.
What nobody spoke about is that if you forget Indian institutions, if you look at research which is coming from, let's say, a Mayo Clinic, what do they say? 80 to 85% women face it in their life cycle.
Yeah.
If it persists beyond the age of 25, you need a checkup, you need a pap check, you need a pelvic examination.
Which is a medical issue then.
It's a medical issue. It is shocking that it's less in married women, more in young girls.
Yeah.
So the issue is you're creating newer layers for women to be humiliated. You're creating new layers for discrimination. You're creating more reasons for them to say, Arey, pehle we used to deny them because they're getting married. Then they are being denied because they're having babies. Now you're giving them a monthly reason to deny them equal opportunity. So when I spoke in Parliament, I spoke from my personal experience because I don't want more and more women harassed. But the question is it not provided for in the law? It is a part of law already.
Yeah.
It is only under the context of medical leave, which is true because if you look at the challenge with regards to severe pain, that is an indication of a hormone or chemical imbalance or a genetic inclination to it, which means you need a doctor immediately. You can't self-medicate, especially if it is above the age of 25.
It became political because you had K. Kavita saying, as a
I
woman,
don't
it is
expect her
appalling.
to be socially or politically mature. What I'm shocked at is the number of men who had an opinion about an experience as a working professional that I had had. I was very clear on the floor of the House. This is my personal experience.
But there's a woman too. I mean, you're saying man, but she's a woman politician and she
Like I
says
said, I don't expect social or political maturity from her. I have deducted in my experience of working with her as an opposition member, most of them fancy the headline. They don't fancy the content that provides a solution. Even the gentleman who asked the question, why would you ask me a question about providing menstrual hygiene for gay men? The intent was never to provide a solution or to start a conversation.
And then there was that.
He's asking me in part 1 of his supplementary about the plastic composition of manufacturing of sanitary pads. You would presume, and this is records available, that Mr. Jha knows that I'm not manufacturing pads. So the intent was to create a headline, possibly get featured in one of those brute videos.
Which happened.
And it's easier to do when the person who's responding is as blunt as I am.
And it's like, well.
Nobody saw that part C.
Nobody did.
saw part C of the question.
But I saw a number of things in Instagram.
Like I said,
It
if you
went
ask me
viral.
about the German Sanskrit, if you ask me about every controversy, I have such interesting insights that you'd be shocked out of your wits.
German what?
When I was HRD, the whole German Sanskrit debate that I am the
yeah.
unpad.
So what happened with that whole controversy about German and Sanskrit that we should
No,
learn?
I'll give you a Kapil Sibal headline. He's the one who signed it. That German is the third language of India.
When you said that it should French and
said
German
it
should be replaced and
I
and
said
Sanskrit,
treat
them on par.
No, I said teach it as a foreign language. That's it. which is not wrong.
Yeah.
But it became Smriti Irani. I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
you speak Deutsch.
So do not jhado German on me now. English, Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Bengali. Have I covered all the languages?
Maybe.
Punjabi.
Yes,
Also.
Marathi.
Marathi. How? This is another aspect of you only. And now you're jadoing German on me.
I'm lucky to have roots and family members from various parts of the country.
But so what? Many of us have. That doesn't mean कि सब languages ही सीख लिया.
I think when you're learning languages early because you have a multilingual family, it's comparatively easy. And then you kind of...
So mother Bengali.
Mother's a Bengali. Her mother was from Dhubri, Assam. My Nana was from the Bangladesh border. My Nani was from undivided Bengal.
So that's how you know Bengali.
Came to Dhubri. Then Nani covered. Dada was from undivided Punjab. Came from there to this Janakpuri refugee camp. Then went onwards to Muradabad.
So that's why Malhotra is your surname.
And yes, and Dadi was a Maharashtrian, married to a Parsi. So
so Dadi was a Maharashtrian. So Dadi spoke to you in Marathi?
no, Dadi passed long before I was born.
Oh, okay.
But father knew it, never spoke it. But when I went to Mumbai,
So what was the language at home when you were growing up then?
my mum would speak to me in Bengali. My dad would insist on speaking in Punjabi. Every time my nani and my masis and my mother wouldn't want me to know what is happening, they would speak in Telugu.
Why Telugu?
Because
How? Telugu.
my Nana had served in the Navy, so they were stationed in Vizag. So I think it's a genetic thing. So the minute they would speak in Telugu, I would know something's up.
Correct.
My mother can speak, apart from these languages, she can speak Telugu, she can speak Malayalam.
Wow.
So I'm from a multilingual family. So the
Multilingual.
minute they switch the language, I know something's
So
up.
how come Marathi and Gujarati?
My husband is a Parsi. And I was, like I said, unionizing in Maharashtra. So that's the language of the
But
unions.
how many years did you stay there? 10 years maybe? 8
I
or 10?
went there when I was
8.
17.
Wow.
I'm 47 now.
Okay. But you left, right? I mean, what, 2000 to 2008 was Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi.
I left in 1995, 6. And oscillated between Delhi, Mumbai.
Okay, let's get to that part. I mean, politics to karte rahenge, baat karte rahenge. Let's get to that part of your life. How and when and why did you go to Bombay? And
I just wanted to be somebody on my own merit. I was very irritated with this whole Delhi nuisance that I had around me, which said anything you do was credited to daddy. That kind of got my goat. So wherever this A&I building is, I studied in a school right opposite, which was in so we had a lot of friction in the family because my parents were from different political ideologies. What can politics do to a family? I've witnessed it firsthand. My dad is or was a congressman. I don't know which category because there are times when he gets irritated with me
I
when
love
I say
that
something.
picture where you took him to meet
Prime
Modi ji
Minister.
and you said it's like parent
So my
teacher
dad
meeting.
had this whole thing. He spent his whole life, I think he left active contribution to politics when Rajiv Gandhi died.
Okay.
I've seen him literally weep.
88.
I've seen him literally weep. And I was like, 76 born. So I'm like 12 years old. To see a grown man weep for his leader, I've seen that. My mother's a Sanghi. My Nana was from Valmyatsi Kalyan Ashram. So the Sector 6 Vishwa Hindu Parishad office that you have near the A&I office, that's where I used to go for Shakha with my Nana.
Okay.
My mother was in Jansang. So my Nana was posted in Mumbai, in the Navy colony there. Mazgaon docks he was placed in. My mother used to
I was born
work
there.
in... So my mother used to do Janasangha work in Ghatkopar area.
Okay.
The only grudge that side of the family had was that we were always Swayam Sevaks. We never became politicians. Why would you become a politician? The grudge on the dad side of the family was, if you had to become a politician, why did you become a politician in the BJP? So
It's okay. Family can never be made.
we have seen explosive conversations.
But this was before you entered politics. There was explosive conversations, or afterwards?
No, I've seen it before because they fought on
Mom and
issues
dad.
like emergency, 84 riots. Right next to your office is the Gurdwara.
Yes.
I remember when I was asking for the address, I said, "Are you next to the
Next to
Gurdwara?" And you were a bit
yeah.
shocked. How do I know?
How do you know? Yeah.
That's because I used to walk to school from Malai
Holy
Mandir
Acha. Okay.
to this
Basant Vihar to
Malai Mandir to this. I think it's what, a good 2
Yeah,
kilometers. So
aram
every day I
se.
would go up and down. And the land on which Tent Wala school was built was basically an effort by 2-3 Swayam Sevaks. They wanted to kind of do something in education. Opposite that land, and this school was up to standard 5. Opposite that land was this big missionary school, imposing building. And every day I would stand outside and I would look at it and I say, "Is school mein kaise jate hain?"
Oh.
Because that had 6 to 12.
Huh.
My mother told me we can't afford it because my parents had separated by then. And she said, we can't afford this. So I used to go and stand outside the school gate till one day one of the sisters came and said, this kid turns up every day after her school. So they would say, what are you doing here? And I was like, how do you get into this school? So they said, we have an exam. If you pass that exam, then we will consider it. So when I went back home, I told my mom, I said, if I pass that exam, I can get in. She said, even if you pass the exam, we can't afford it. Then at that time, my mother was working at Taj Mansingh as a housekeeper. And the head of housekeeping department was Juhi Chawla's mother. Okay. So the big news was that Miss India ho gayi hai, Mrs. Chawla ki beti. And I was like, listen, I don't want Miss India. I want to go to that school. So at that time, the Tatas had a project that if you can get 60% and above, they would pay for the employee's child. So my mom said, if you can manage this, I will pay this school fees up to a certain limit. And then, we'll go and ask for a scholarship. So I passed that exam. I went back to her. I said, let's go find some money. And this is me in the 5th standard.
Which year was this?
5th standard. I don't know what age, but I remember the standard.
The
because
reason
I'm
I'm
like
asking
getting
is-
in 6th standard. I'm like, I wanted to come here.
It's quite strange. The reason I'm asking is I taught dance in that same school.
Please don't tell me you're my dance teacher.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
I taught Bharatnatyam in that school.
Please don't tell me.
Yes.
that. Which
in the
one?
same school. Yeah, Holy Child Auxilium.
I can't say what I want. Are you kidding me?
Yes, in that same school, I was in college, and my dance teacher.
They'll call you Godi Media after that.
So
I was more of a sports person there.
So I
I was actually a sports person everywhere. But I sang in the choir.
okay.
I still remember when the Pope visited. I was a part of the choir which sang for the Pope. So that was a big achievement for the school.
Yeah, correct. It was the same time. I was in JMC at that time, and I was to be part
you
of that.
You are a dance teacher.
Yes.
Oh my God, that just ruined your career,
So,
so
I was in college, so this was extra money. So it was like great. I just have to come once a week.
For us, it was consistent performance. And I would be too lazy. I would just get that passing mark which could help get the scholarship. And I remember one day I got whacked by my mother for possibly in one of the unit tests they used to have. I did very badly in math. I got a whacking of my life. She said, you're deliberately doing this and you're being dumb. And then there was this Olympiad exams, NTSC exams they used to do. So I was so irritated. I sat for one of them, got the silver medal, and I said, I'll be done with it now. So I'm not dumb, it's just that I'm disinterested.
So tell me, you went through such a jaddojahed to get into school. Why didn't you pursue with academics?
Didn't
Why
have money.
Okay.
Didn't have money. My parents, God bless them, my dad, first 7 years of my life, when I was born, it was an inter-caste, inter-region marriage. They fell in love. And that too, when emergency was on the anvil. So they get married in 75 in the middle of all that chaos. I'm born in 76. When I'm born, they have $150 between the two of them and 2 patilas, pital wale. Because that's all that they could muster between the two of them. One of their friends, my father, took us Munirka mein. He had a tabela. So he said, the best I can do is give you a room above the tabela. That's why I'm not very bothered when I went to a meeting because I mean, been there, done that. Once they got that, my mom, this very elegant, erudite, well-read, uh, graduate, masters in many language, says that Ajay, we can't stay here above a tabela with a girl the rest of our lives. So, in the middle of his political activities at that time, and for a Sanghi and a Congress guy to get married at that, I mean, I don't know how they survived.
A volatile period,
Very, very. And they're very, very
Huh.
opinionated, even to this day. So, for them, then they moved to a place called Gurgaon now. Not the fancy Gurgaon that you see, but the Gurgaon, which new colony, which sets you back to the Stone Ages. So she would try and teach people, sell door-to-door handmade masalas. He would put a chaddar on the floor opposite Army Club in Dholakwan because that's where the bus adda was for people to go to Gurgaon from Delhi.
Correct, DSOI.
Yes. And I would sit next to him on that pavement so that he could sell books.
Gosh, that was hard life.
That was a hard life. And when I was 7, they decided to go separate ways. And I still remember that house looked very big to me as a kid because you're 7 years old and you have a sister who's 5, you have another sister who's 3. And I remember standing outside that house. The first time I got a whack for my mom was for multiplication tables in that house. I realized later it was a laundry owner's wash shop. And I looked outside. It was the only home that I'd known. And she said, what the hell are you doing? Just get into the cycle rickshaw we had. That, the meter's ticking, get on. We have to leave. And I kept looking at it and I said, one day, I'll buy this house. She gave me a white, tight whack on the head. She says, you're talking crap. Just get on the damn rickshaw, let's go. So that was my last memory of that house. After that, we came to Delhi. It was difficult as a Bengali Brahmin girl to have married a Punjabi Khatri. And my grandfather, my Nana, we call him Dadu, had contributed to what you know now as Dokhin Dilli Kalibadi, making the Kalibadi.
Okay.
So for them, it was a culture shock. And I remember my entire life, as long as my grandfather was alive and my grandmother was alive, she used to never cross the kitchen ka dehliz. And I used to always wonder, I said, "Ab dehliz kyun nahi paar karte hai?" She said, "Nahi, shaadi ke baad ab main, because I'm married out, I can't step in."
Oh my goodness.
So I've seen all that, and that's why I'm very intent that if you can ease the life of women, if you can ease the life of single parents, families, that's the best contribution that you can do as a politician. I came into politics because I'd seen so much. And I was very clear that you can contribute as a social activist to a certain limit, but you need policy in place which makes people's life better. So, I mean, I still remember my first movie was Sound of Music at Chanakyapuri. The only difference was my Nana said ki ya to bus ka paisa hai to film ka paisa hai. So with him, I remember this long walking stick, I held one end of it. We walked all the way from Kalibadi to Chanakya just to watch the movie. So I've seen that life. I remember 84. We had to cross this place next to the Gurdwara to go to school.
Yeah.
And I remember the mayhem, the chaos, the burnt body smell. I mean, I remember people saying, "Udhar dekho nahi, सीधा चलो." So they would, I mean, there's a gully right next to your office.
Yes.
अगर हमको shortcut लेना है तो हम आपकी वो गली से निकल के जा सकते हैं सामने की गली में और स्कूल पहुंच सकते हैं.
Yeah.
That was the only time. And if you look, whoever lives in this area knows that near Malai Mandir is the taxi stand, which was run by Sikh community. And my house of my Nana's was right there. So I remember standing on the chat, watching it burn. And my mother was at Mansingh. And you don't have phones and you don't have the amenities. And you're desperate for her to come back because she does the night shift. And she finds some way of communicating. She calls somebody calls somebody, and somebody gets to my Nana to say that there has been a Sikh employee who is hacked around the circle. So the management is keeping the staff, and especially the women, in the hotel so that, they don't fall to some misfortune. So when I speak against the Gandhis, I speak with that passion because I've seen all this. I've witness it as a kid. I have questioned why. And that entire period, I had to go all the way around to get to school because the
It's
only.
seared in your memory, right?
When you're 8, when you're 7, when you're 12, it stays with you for the rest of your life. When you've seen poverty and you're too young, your foundational years have shown you that. It stays. It doesn't matter how successful you become later on in life. That stays. That chip on your shoulder just stays forever.
When you go to Taj, does that come back to you?
So my first house as MP was opposite Taj. And I called my mom from there. And I said, Taj Machan is a very popular restaurant there. The chef at that time was a very nice gentleman, still is. And women who could not afford, the chef there is very nice. And when my mother served, women like her who were single could not afford, to get home because we had to leave for school at 7:30 max. And she would come back from work at 7. He would give a sandwich made out of leftovers. And we would carry that to school. And everybody at school thought we are some it girls because we had Taj ka sandwich. They did not know it was out of leftovers. Because, when kids sit together, they say, chalo share karte hain. I would like, no. So they thought I was being a bit hoity but I knew that this is a chef's benevolence. So when I got my first house as MP, I called my mum.
Where was she?
She was in Mumbai at the time.
Mumbai, okay.
So I called her and I said, Amma, guess where the house is? And she's like, don't show off. I said, no, it's opposite Taj.
She's still telling you don't show up. She's telling you what not to do.
Yeah. And
Moms
I
will be
said,
moms, right?
Can you come next time you're here? We'll pay for the sandwich at Machan. And I went there and I asked for that sandwich because it had a kya bolte hain usko?
Toothpick like
type.
thing, huh?
It had a rabbit on it. So the first thing I went, and by then none of them knew who I was from my past life. So the people who were serving there were wondering why I'm asking. I said, wo toothpick abhi hai kya? So they just looked at me like, what is wrong with you? But I knew what it meant for me. So I said, we'll go back. This time we'll pay for it.
Oh my God.
So even my dad, my entire life went opposing him ideologically. His politics were centered around, the Congress Gandhi family. I think he's the only person who didn't celebrate when I won in 2019.
Wow.
For him, I defeated his Neta's son, which was unforgivable. He dissuaded me from fighting 2004. In fact, Congress party did call him and say, Malhotra ji, आप बेटी को बोलिए छोड़ दे. He said, मैं नहीं बोल सकता उसको. He said, फिर आप हमारे लिए आके प्रचार कीजिए. So it was like that in 2004. For him to turn around and say he had taken a fall before he met the Prime Minister, in fact, 2-3 days before, and 74 years old, he fell down. And as you have aging parents, you get a bit worried. So I asked him, he said, मुझे जाने से पहले एक बार नरेंद्र मोदी देखना है. Now for a man who had politically, ideologically been on the opposite side of the fence, to say I want to see Modi once, I put in the request and the Prime Minister was kind enough. I knew it was a busy day. I said, I just need 5 minutes because I was genuinely worried my dad's going. And he met the Prime Minister and he said, I just want to see you to say thank you. What you've done for the country. He says, I've been in politics for a good 40-50 years. And my father said, I have seen what the country was perceived as internationally. I think for me, that was like life coming a full circle. That at 74, your father finally says, Modi ko mujhe ek baar bolna hai, thank you.
For a daughter, it matters a lot.
Especially if you're ideologically opposed to your father. You've fought his ideology your entire life. And I think I called him the next morning. I said, Ja rahe ho?
Why?
Because
why?
Because I said,
this is so you.
I said, क्यों पापा आपका हो गया? अब आप क्या कह रहे हो? Because you can't encourage him to look after himself. He's one of those, हाँ ठीक है हो जाएगा देख लेंगे types. Typical Punjabi. और लड़कियों के, he's never had a drop of water in my house.
Oh God, please.
He's old school. He would never drink even a sip of water in my house, let alone eat anything. I'm what 20-25 years, never. सात घर छोड़ के भी नहीं, सात गांव छोड़ के भी नहीं, रिश्तेदारी में नहीं. For that man to see, I want to see Modi. And after seeing Modi, me pulling his leg, Papa said, मोदी से मिलने के बाद लगता है अभी और चलने वाला हूँ मैं 4-5 साल.
अच्छा.
That is the impact.
Were you gloating?
I think it took a lot for him to come full circle.
Yeah. Acha, tell me one thing, like what you did just now. Call up your dad and say, "Haan, ja rahe ho." You do unnecessarily get into scraps, don't you? You're just waiting. Ki, haan,
No,
chalo.
no, no. I have, Smita, seen enough life to know that you have only one of it. You cannot layer it with dishonesty in conversations and connect. I get whacked from both sides. One whacks me as a Swayam Sevak, the other whacks me as a Congress person.
No, but they had a love marriage in an era where it was something different, and then different ideologies phir bhi. So they were progressive, and your mom like encouraged you to go to Bombay and work there, drop out and go there. So they were progressive in a way, but in spite of that,
progressive.
They are progressive, but in spite of that, very traditional in this respect. कि ये सब करना है. And that's you
They
also.
would have a fight that ये पंजाबियों में होता है, बंगालियों में नहीं होता. So she would happily eat and drink. She has no problem. Chai lao. The fight would be
So who are
about
you on?
diabetes management.
You're-
Unfortunately, that part I've taken up from my father.
The scrapping.
No, the part where
tradition.
I will not eat in a beti ka ghar.
Please don't tell me this.
I have, unfortunately. It's
You're-
stuck to my head now. I have just done that.
No, you don't.
I remember my dad
What is
telling
this?
me,
Dakyanusi
you're
khayal.
getting married. तो सास के ना सुबह सुबह पैर छूने चाहिए. I said, Dad, I know all that. I still remember touching my mother-in-law's feet. She jumped onto the sofa. And I'm like, what are you doing? She says, in Parsi, हम जब मर जाते तब पैर छूते. Please don't touch my feet. So I've had an interesting family life.
You were this ideal bahu, right? I mean, it was
I
expected.
have
out
the
of you.
coolest mother-in-law who says, please don't live with me.
No, what I mean to say is that क्योंकि सास भी कभी बहू थी, that sweet सी बहू like Tulsi. You ruined it for many of us. Let me tell you this. We were all expected to become like you.
I remember when Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi was on, Zubin had never seen it. Nobody in the family's ever watched it. So there's a
He
scene
hasn't
where,
watched. Which Indian hadn't watched?
the ones who are related to me, they hadn't watched.
Okay.
None
but
of them
you've
had
known him
watched.
for a long time, right?
Known him since I was 11 years old.
Okay. But then there was a period you didn't know him then.
My Bua, my father's younger sister who's no more, was of the opinion that you're dirt poor. And I was around 15 years old at that time. Some fancy Punjabi business, big house, only ladka, apparently saw a picture of mine and said, I have to marry this girl. And I was like, I'm not getting married. And
Photo
I'm the
dik-
first girl to work in my family.
Oh,
My mother was the first woman to work, and I'm the first girl to work. It was very clear that, I wanted to do something beyond what dad had to offer in terms of a career opportunity. So I said, I don't want to marry anybody. And my dad
You're
was
17.
there. That time I was 15, 16. They said, no, he'll wait. I'm like, hello, I'm not getting out of this country. I'm not leaving. And I'm working. And then there was a proposal that, okay, fine. Then either this guy or that guy. So I think Zubin walked up and said, dude, I'll let you work. I'm like, ठीक है. So instead of this whole romantic notion people had, the thing that sold me to this marriage was, तुम काम कर सकते हो. I said, very good. And then my father added, Parsi लोग वैसे भी ज़्यादा पंगे नहीं करते. मैंने कहा, very good.
Okay.
So
but he
for
was in
me-
Bombay.
He was
already.
in Bombay. He was in Bombay. But I was very clear. I wanted to make something of my life. I remember the first time I went to Mumbai at 17. Before that, I'd had a stint in working already in Delhi. So my dad was in the logistics courier trade. For us to do work then, and there were only 3 women in India at that time who were into the logistics courier business. I would go to Basadda ISBT to pick up load, which means that you would pick up huge parcels and haul it. I would go to Palam Airport and pick it up. So you'd go at 4 in the morning. Sometimes you'd go at 1 in the night. Sometimes you'd go to the Goldak Khana post office. So I'd done that part. And I realized that I wanted to move to a space where my dad had nothing to do with any achievement. Because everybody would turn around and say, Haan, Malhotra di kudi aegi and one that. I'm like, no, it's me. And so when I went to Mumbai, the Mumbai area and Thane at that time, obviously 30 years ago did not have the amenities or the modes of communication. The bigger challenge was to deal with the unions there. So I had an affinity to language. I told my father, let me handle the desk there of movement of goods. I think one of the first, if you call it scraps I fell into was with the union there. And they were like, this piddly little thing has come to, teach us. So I was very clear that, okay, let's fulfill contractual obligations, turn up to work at time.
You learnt on the job, right? You had no training,
Before
nothing.
that, when I was 16, I worked on the streets in Janpath. So what you see Janpath today, I used to sell, if you remember, there's a cricketer, Manoj Prabhakar.
Yeah.
He had a beauty product line called Naturance.
Okay.
They needed somebody to street vend for themselves.
Huh.
And I was getting no job nowhere because my dad was not interested in kind of igniting the fires of me becoming, some working professional female. So one of the first jobs I got, just to tell my dad that I'm, genuinely inclined towards working, was then I saw this ad. I said, "Arey." Then I went. They said 200 रुपये मिलेगा per day. आपको इतना इतना बेचना है सड़क पे खड़े होके 12 घंटे. I was like, done.
In front of Janpath,
In front of sadak pe. Naturance, if there is ever, I found one of my,
and the Deepals and all those shops.
No, before that, between India Coffee House and where they sell street पे जो कपड़े बेचते हैं.
5.5, 5.5,
हाँ, उधर मैंने बेचा हुआ है. 200 रुपये per day पे Naturance मनोज प्रभाकर का beauty line.
Okay.
Then my father was like, क्या कर रहे हो सड़क पे सामान बेच रहे हो? I said, either somebody give me a job or I'm going to do सड़क पे काम the rest of my life. So that's when I then got into logistics, where everybody said, oh, she's Malhotra's kid, so she's very good at it because the dad is helping, which irritated me no end. So I went to Mumbai. There I had to deal with the union already existing.
Nepo kid nahi chahiye tag.
I was very clear that I didn't want Nepo kid. I worked there to set up systems for logistics. And then I told my dad I want a share in the company. He said, boss, I don't own the company, I work for the company. So I said, how do I get a share in the company? And I think at his age, to see the 17-year-old kid wanting a share in the company, he's like, you've lost your mind. So he said, you can become a franchisee. So I said, how much? Can I get a discount? He says, absolutely not. You need to cough up $25,000 right now. I'm like, I don't have money. You don't pay me. He said, too bad. So that's how my logistics dream went for a toss.
And then
he says, you can't afford it. I'm pulling off the job from you. This has suddenly become, this whole creature monster has appeared where she's become so ambitious. And he's telling my mom she's mad because she wants to buy into a company. What is wrong with her? We are all employees, you know where we have come from. And I remember there's a Jutewala Park, Kamala Nehru Park in Mumbai. And I stood there in the evening. My mom was told by my dad that get her back. And I looked at the whole Marine Drive, that circle. And I told my mom, ek din ye sheher mujhe janega. That's the second slap I got from her. So the first at 7, the other at 17. And she says, and I think because she'd been a single parent, she'd seen how difficult it is for women.
Yeah.
She's like, we are nobodies. What makes you think? And I insisted that I'll be somebody. So I insisted that when I was 7. I insisted that when I was 17.
So how did you meet with Ekta and how did Kyunki Saas Bhi thing happen?
So I basically, when I was brought back to Delhi, because they were like, iski shaadi kara do, some Pandit came home and actually looked through, and I don't have a time of birth. So you'll find many kundlis of mine on the internet, but none of them are true because nobody knows my time of birth. And that Pandit ji looked at the kundlis of my sisters and said, ye wali badi bright hai, iska bada ye ho jayega, uska bada ho jayega. My father was like, अरे बड़ी वाली का देखो यार, इसकी हमारे को शादी करानी है. And the Pandit said, इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता लाइफ में, इसकी तो शादी करा दो. इसके भाग्य में सिर्फ हाउस वाइफ बनना लिखा है. I was so angry. And the Pandit ji will speak to each other after 10 years. And my dad was livid. He said, what is wrong with you? How can you be disrespectful? I said, because I'm going to be somebody. So in the midst of all that cacophony, I think I spent a good 4-5 years going up and down trying to do odd jobs, till one day I saw a Miss India ad in 98. And I filled the ad without telling anybody. And I remember the dining table conversation because the phone rang. They said, we are calling from Times of India. And kal aa jana. Hayat mein Barakhamba. Nahi, Bikaji Kama place. I was like, acha, kya lana hoga? They said, no, you just come, walk, whatever. And there was hangama in the house. Because my dad sat me down and said, "Are you dumb?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you not well read?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Do you have no ambitions where application of brains matter?" I said, "Yes."
Oh my God.
Why the hell would you go into Miss India? So I said, this is the only space where you have nothing to intervene into and have no say. Media is the only space where I could get in. So he said, don't you have other things that you can do in media? I said, do we have the money for you to send me for training? We didn't. So I go, I do my whole walk, and after every round I would run out. Kya cha ho gaya, thank you, tata. And they would call me back from the gate and say, you've cleared the next round, and the next round, and the next round. Finally, there's a lineup of people from the North Zone. And he looks at me and he says, step up. And I step up. And he asks me something which is about current affairs, and I answer. He says, lady, when did you first know how to apply lipstick? I said, I don't. He said, where do you buy these shoes from? I said, they're borrowed. Because in Sector 8, my sister's classmate on the chat taught me how to walk. He said, itna chal lena, bahut ho jayega.
Okay.
And Pradeep Guha.
Pradeep Guha. Okay.
And I turned around and said, ye kaun hai? And Times of India was shocked. They're like, this is a legend. I'm like, हाँ ठीक है, लेकिन whatever. I went and my dad said, हो गया फितूर खत्म, हाँ अब पढ़ो या फिर नौकरी करो, get out of this. Next thing I get a call that you're going to the finals. That's when I borrow money from my dad because he said, I'm not gonna. So somebody who couldn't afford $25,000 borrowed 1 lakh rupees from the father.
Okay.
To go to Miss India finals. And throughout the competition, I would tell my colleagues कि अगर मुझे बोलने देंगे ना last 5 में question answer मैं जीत जाऊंगी. And I never made it to the top 5.
Who won that year? Do you remember?
And I remember what, I mean, it would be very disrespectful for me to make a comment on that because the girl who stood with me in the competition became then Nandini in Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. Gauri Pradhan. And I distinctly, and she was herself an acclaimed model by then. And I remember telling Gauri, both of us are watching the lady getting crowned. And I said, तुझे एक बात बता देती हूँ गौरी, आज से 10 साल बाद लोग हमारा नाम जानेंगे, इसका नाम कोई नहीं जानेगा. Gauri looked at me, she said, you mad woman. I'm telling you. So for us, it was, most of us were from disenfranchised families who had never come to Mumbai, you know. So all of those outsiders were like vying for the crown.
So did Ekta see you in that?
No. Neelam Kothari fell sick one day in an anchoring program called Beekman's Ulala. Everybody kept calling everybody because the producers were at wit's end कि last minute सब hire कर लिया है, खर्चा बढ़ गया है. One shift would cost at least $1.5 lakh. तो किसको लाएं? तो somebody said ये लड़की एक है, उसको हमने कहीं न्यूज़ पढ़ते देखा है. और I had done a whisper. Ironies of ironies, I had done a whisper campaign for sanitary pads.
And you were to tell Mr. Jha.
And at that time, if you do a sanitary pad ad, your career is dead. You're a goner. But I had no money. So on the night Miss India got over, I called my dad. And I said, listen, Miss India has given me washing machine. ये gifts हैं. इसकी कीमत है 60,000 रुपए. वो मैं आपको भेज रही हूँ. 40,000 बकाया है. And he's like, boss, ये 40,000 कमाने में तुमको पता है बहुत time लगेगा. So he gave me 1 year, few months. He says, if you don't give that back, that money back, you're getting married. So I said, done. I couldn't find a job. So they said, whisper ad karoge. The minute you do the sanitary pad ad, then you're persona non grata. And I'm like, I need the money. So I landed up going to many appointments and many interviews. One of them was for Jet Airways at that time. I thought I'll become cabin crew. They looked at me and they said, you don't have the personality. So there was an interview right next to Jet Airways, which was the first ever McDonald's that had opened in India in Bandra, Linking Road. They were, I said, तुम पहले बता देते यार, मैं वहाँ का interview कर लेती. So I walked into the McDonald's thing. By then, I had already done, I'd been a Miss India finalist. And I went into McDonald's to say, नौकरी बची है, are all the slots over? They said, एक बची है, which is to clean the bartan and, mop. So I said, when do you get to the cashier's position? They just looked at me, they're like, you just can clean utensils. I'm like, yeah, but there must be career progression, right? So they said, these are the steps when you can, stand behind the cash line and say, welcome to McDonald's. I said, how do you become the manager? They just looked at me. They were
You didn't want shares in McDonald's. Knowing you probably want.
And you know what? When I became textile minister, people wanted to donate something to the Prime Minister's cause, especially for girls. So I told Mr. Jatia at that time, my textile union associations had a lot of people who were in the restaurant business. I said, I think I have a PF and a salary slip still pending in McDonald's. If you find it, auction it and raise some money. They were like, are you mad? They actually went and looked for it. McDonald's called up and said, yes, we have a salary slip.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So that can go in
And
eBay.
in the middle of all that, I do the Neelam Kothari, I do her
Anchoring.
standing. And I shoot what normally took 6 hours. I shot it in 40 minutes. So I fill in for Neelam Kothari, who couldn't be available for this Star Plus show, Bake Manzulala, because she had fever or something.
What is Bake Manzula?
That was the name of the company that was sponsoring. It's a top 10 100 songs.
अच्छा, okay.
Anchoring
I
bit.
thought कोई baking की
नहीं,
show है.
गाना था top 10 top 100 ऐसा वाला. And in the middle of the shoot, somebody suddenly realized, अरे इस बच्चे को आप स्क्रिप्ट दे दो, ये तो 40 मिनट में 6 घंटे का काम कर देती है. And the producer, Nirja Guleri, if you remember.
Yeah.
They were like, kid, can you do one more script? I'm like, can you pay me for it? They were like, हाँ. अच्छा, at that time payment was how much? 5,000. मेरे को तो लगा मेरी लॉटरी निकल गई है. King's ransom, हाँ. Because मेरी मैकडोनल्ड्स में जो पगार थी वो 1,200 रुपए थी. मैंने कहा मैं पूरा महीना झाड़ू पोछा करके मुझे 1,200 या 1,500 मिल रहे हैं. And the seller point was break में आपको बर्गर मिलेगा खाने के लिए, lunch नहीं लाना. So you're calculating all costs. And suddenly this person says, if you can act, you'll get $5,000. I'm like, not telling me that Neelam gets in lakhs. So they got somebody who shot in 40 minutes, took $5,000. I'm like, 5,000 rupees, done. And I felt very rich that day कि ये मेरी तो बहुत बड़ा haul हो गया. Shobha Kapoor sees it. Every producer is calling every producer.
This is
किफायती
Jitendra
बच्चा.
For viewers and listeners who were born, just 15, 20 years
Shobha
ago.
Kapoor is one of the most astute business persons in media. She sees me, and Sati Shori, who is the film star Arjun Kapoor's grandmother, was again one of those prominent female producers. They are both talking to each other on the phone, saying, "Ye bachcha kaun hai?" Then they call Nirja Guleri Productions, who say, "We just chanced upon this kid who can speak Hindi." That was my selling point. Ye bachcha clarity से हिंदी में बात कर सकता है. कहाँ मिलेगा? So I get this huge call. शोभा कपूर आपसे मिलना चाहते हैं. I'm like, कौन? आपको पता है सुपरस्टार जितेंद्र? I said, of course. तो आप मिलने आइए. And what did I audition for? I auditioned for हम पांच.
Okay, those 5 sisters.
And Priya Tendulkar is walking. She's a legend, And you were like, Priya Tendulkar. She looked at me, she smiled. And the person sitting next to me is saying, वो शायद पूछना चाह रही है, एक्टिंग आती है? I said, I've never acted before. So in the middle of all this, I'm also auditioning for ads because that's quick money. And I'm rejected for Hum Panch. But Shobha Kapoor is insistent. She says, something is there. Sati Shori tells her, kuch to hai is bachche mein. Rahul Ravel's, I think, nephew also directs me in one episode. So I'm happy that, I'm counting that $40,000 I have to pay back my dad.
Yeah.
And I then get invited to see Ekta Kapoor milengi aapse. I'm like, acha.
She was very young. And
she's 1 year older than I am.
Okay.
So I'm 22, 23. I'm 23, she's 24. So she's looking at me.
She's also just learning on the job.
Yeah, I mean. And she's looking at me and she's like, Mummy, please, ye kaun hai? Because I'm dressed in jeans and a patawa t-shirt, chashma, and I have a book and a sling bag as though I've just come out of a university. Badly scrunched up hair. And obviously, everybody else who's meeting such producers is very well dressed. Looking like a dainty actor. I'm not. Ekta dismisses me when she sees me.
Okay.
There's nothing doing with her. Shobhaji is insistent. Sati Shori gives me a job simultaneously, and I'm getting a job to do anchoring bits now because everybody's like, "Arey, some producer I find who makes me do 6 episodes in a half shift." So for them, it becomes like one of the most kifaiti actors that you get.
Correct.
Till such time where there's a show called Ghar Ek Mandir which comes on Sony TV. They needed heroine की बहन.
Okay.
And I'm like, पैसे कितने दे रहे हो भैया? They said आपको इतना मिल जाएगा पैसा. Again around 1,300-1,400 bucks. मैं कहा अच्छा महीने का मिल जाएगा. ऐसे नहीं मैडम, डे का मिलेगा. एंड सडनली आई एम लाइक, हे भगवान, ये तो बड़ी अच्छी नौकरी है, पर डे आप 1,000 रुपये दे रहे हो, तो मेरे तो आपके यहाँ 40 दिन काम करूँ, मेरे पिताजी का पैसा तो अभी निकल आएगा. आई एम वेरी edgy because I'm 1 month away from my dad's deadline of come back to Delhi and get married. And I go, I sign my things. And I remember that day because not even 1 month. I remember that day when I get the call, when I'm supposed to go and I'm told कि आप 23 मार्च को आ जाना और अपना contract ले जाना. अच्छा अच्छा. Again, I'm dressed up like a vagabond and land up. There's a Jyotish, I didn't know, Janardhan, sitting in Ekta's office. And her office was nothing but glass. So he apparently, and she told me this, saw me walking up to the reception to pick up my papers. To say, जो भी लड़के इसको रोको. अच्छा, that he also had no way of knowing that I'm, an aspiring actor. He said, जो भी है इसको रोको, ये बहुत बड़ा नाम बनने वाली है, इसको ले लो. So she rushes out literally to say, stop, what are you doing? Who are you? And I'm like, madam, I've just been hired. And I'm like, please, for heaven's sake, don't reject
Don't
me.
fire me.
Because I'm 1 month away from the deadline. And my dad knew that this is the end. So I'm supposed to just,
So this Jyotish cancels that Jyotish.
I have just said yes to getting married in the same morning.
Okay.
It's my birthday, so I say, acha, theek hai yaar. And they're like, she walks up, she rips the contract. She gets a new contract. She said, sign this. And I'm thinking, 1300 rupees ud gaye.
Oh.
She says, how much do you need? So I'm thinking, isse main paise 1500 rupees maangungi. Because I had no idea. She says, you have any clue I'm about to make you a star? I was like, whatever. Where do I have to sign for $1,500? I signed it and she wrote for the character Tulsi. She said, कल आ जाना और कल audition कर देना. Couldn't care less. Walked off. Tried to patao my father because my dad is a huge Balaji Bhakt. ऐसे आपको मालूम है production company का नाम बालाजी है. I said, I am not done with this. You are not doing this. You're getting married. I'm like, but the guy wants me to work also, no? What is your problem? And the guy is in Bombay. So he said, नहीं, एक्टर को नहीं ये लोग पसंद करेंगे फैमिली में. They are very well respected family. So I said, अरे वो मेरा problem है. So I'm doing these negotiations. I'll land up the next morning. The चौकीदार throws me out of Balaji. Because I tell him कि भाई साहब मेरा ना ऊपर वहाँ पे audition के लिए मुझे बुलाया है. Now I didn't know what Tulsi is. The staff knew what this was. So he just looked at me. He said, are you mad? He said, मतलब यहाँ पे actor का हो रहा है audition. मैंने कहा मालूम है मुझे बोला है इसके लिए आना है. I go up to give an audition. Monisha is Monisha. You know of Tarun Katiyal?
No.
Was a big name in Star.
Okay.
So his counterpart, who's also the creative head at that time. So she looked at me again and she's like, what did you come for? I said, I've been told by Miss Kapoor to come and audition for Tulsi. She has this huge diary and I still remember she flipped through all the characters that were supposed to be cast, including the Nokrani. She said, I don't see your name anywhere. So I think you're hallucinating, go back. So I said, can you turn the page to Tulsi? Can you see the name? She said, Sam Smriti Malhotra. I said, that's me. And I was bad in the audition. I was very bad.
What did they make you do? Not that opening scene.
No. Crying. I was very bad at it.
Please, you cried so well.
I was bad because I thought acting was
cried
about...
and cried and cried in that
I
serial.
thought acting was about, kya ho raha hai? So I did all of that.
You did?
No, I didn't. If you look at my contrast, my genuine acting with what I had done in the audition was pathetic.
Okay.
And just a 5 day before, I was rejected by Prestige pressure cooker.
जो अपनी बीवी से करे प्यार
वो प्रेस्टीज से कैसे करे इनकार. So I used to always make it to the top 2 in auditions. And I remember this was Prestige pressure cooker. I'm sorry Prestige, ये आपकी गलती नहीं है. But if you remember Mad Films, Mukul,
yes,
so his company was doing the ad.
Okay.
But they were nice enough to sit me down to say, you can't do the ad. And I said, but why? You don't look like an Indian housewife. I'm like, okay.
Tell that to my dad.
And look at just stroke of luck. Just 5 days later, I'm cast as one of the biggest, successful, most
Perfect.
housewife
Yes.
roles.
That's what I'm telling you. You just like this ideal bahu.
So every
and
time I saw
everything.
Prestige, I was like,
Do your children tease you about that role ever?
they've not seen it.
No, how can that be?
But they haven't. They're smart kids. They didn't watch.
Yeah. Did you get teased a lot, like, for that role? I mean, of course, you got a lot of
There were
adulation.
people who were indignant that I was regressive as a character. Their regression or their understanding of regression was she is very traditional. That she has no, she's. They would never look at the fact that we discussed issues like rape.
Yeah.
We discussed issues like adult literacy. For them, everything Ekta Kapoor did was so wrong that we would get beaten as a part of the process. And I, on many issues, would be very vehement and be very vocal. And at that time also, I used to write as well. So if I would read a script which I felt was not from my perspective as an individual, not something I could consume creatively or display with conviction, I would call Ekta any time of the day or night and say, I'm not going to say this.
Did she accept?
Yes, I've rewritten scenes on set.
But she's supposed to be a very tough boss, right? Like, there were
The
legends about her.
I was very clear that people used to cross the line with her and try to kind of be a friend and yet have a professional relationship with her. People would befriend her only so that, it made it easy for them in their professional sphere. They may not want to land up on time. They may want to negotiate. I mean, I've seen that happen to her.
Yeah.
They would negotiate a salary.
Women bosses have this thing.
No, I think it's just
There,
normal.
that somebody gets pally and chummy, and they think
I don't
they
think
can
it's a
take
female
advantage.
phenomena. I think men also fall
Yeah?
prey to it.
Okay.
I was very clear that from day one, this is my boss and this is not my friend. And she would tell me, she said, everybody's trying to be my friend and come for lunches and dinners. I said, not interested, because if I blur that line of professionalism between the two of us, you and I both will stand to lose from it. And as long as we were very, very focused as professionals, we were the number one show. Our record is still not broken.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the fact that consistently for 8 years, I was chosen as the best actor across Indian television. That record till date stands. There's no actor, male or female, who's broken that. And that was because we were very clear that when we were landing up on set, I would land up at 7 in the morning. There were times when I remember 2003 Rajasthan elections, and Pramod Mahajan ji at that time, it was a group of like 100 people. Amongst all the men, I was the only female who had packed her bags, and my child was 2-3 months old. So we were figuring out how would I shoot, tend to the baby, and also land up for my political responsibilities. So I would work. Just to give a small description, because Ekta came to see me and she said, you're still standing. Because Pramodji said, there's a 22-day period, beta. I need like full focus on those 22 days. So I would catch a flight at 9 in the morning, land up in Rajasthan, do my prachar or whatever assignment the party had for me, catch a flight again at 6 in the evening, go back home, look after my baby, bathe, feed, go to work, reach work by 8:30 because my baby would sleep, 3-month-old would sleep at that time. Reach my set at 8 in the evening, be ready for my shots by 9 o'clock, work till next morning 6. Go back home again. My baby would be up by then. 7 o'clock, feed her, bathe her, burp her, provide for the milk and other things, support that the baby needed. And then go back for prachar. So I think on day 15, Ekta came on set to say, you're still standing. So I've led that life.
Even on your wedding day, it seems you shot.
Yeah, we're very clear. We knew the historical import of what we were doing. I had a female producer who'd had people just want to bring her down because she was young. She was a woman. And she was insistent on doing things her way. When I came into television at that time, men were paid more than women were because they were the heroes. I was one of the first one to sit down and say, I am going to charge as much as my male colleague, but also make myself valuable enough for you to say that possibly I deserved more. Because of my unionization capacities, I would ask for equal comfort for, let's say, my light man, my camera person, my sound person, the ancillary units of technicians who would work. तो ये नहीं कि मेरे लिए खाना अलग आ रहा है, एक्टर्स के लिए टेक्नीशियंस का अलग आ रहा है. सो आई टू, बिकॉज शोभा जी यूज्ड टू बी लिटरली एट हर विट्स एंड टू से नया क्या झगड़ा है, एंड लाइक इस टेक्नीशियन का
indulge you, or did they appreciate that what you were doing?
I think that
it's difficult, right?
I
Everybody's
don't
working
think
on a
that
budget.
I don't think that they were very appreciative. But we had fantastic budgets, but we were not paid at par. What you see in terms of contracts today, I had, when this menstrual paid leave controversy started, some lady wrote who claims to be from the industry, अरे स्मृति ईरानी के लिए easy रहा है, उसके पास तो vanity van थी. नहीं, I had a miscarriage on set. I came back to work 2-3 days after giving birth. I had no birthing facilities in terms of feeding my baby. So between my studio and the place I lived, there was a 10-minute distance. So I would forego lunch breaks, water breaks, tea breaks, just so that I could be with my baby. But I had no special facilities on set. But I know how much it mattered. We would work, let's say, 12 hours, or we would sometimes go up to 16 hours of work. At that time, nobody would charge for 1.5 shifts. So we fought for that, to say if you're working beyond a 10-hour shift, if you're working to make sure that girls have to work through the night, get them transports. I've done all that. So every time the management would say, "Arey, tum phir aa gaye ho, union leader," and we would set the template for us, and then everybody would follow suit. And if I'd heard of anybody getting sacked for putting up those same demands, then the management knew that I would land up.
So how politics then? Let me tell you firstly, before I ask you how politics, the first time I saw you, I didn't meet you as such because you were already a big star, and I was like, like Chotu Motu. And this is in...
You're my dance teacher.
No,
that's for life.
So I was at Advani ji's house, and
Yes.
you had come in, and you were like, "मुझे बहुत भूख लग रही है, मुझे बहुत भूख लग रही है." So Kamla ji said that अभी खाना लग रहा है, and you said, "I'm pregnant, I'm hungry," and so she said, "मत बताओ यहाँ पे journalists." This is the second baby you were pregnant
I
with.
think that Auntie was being very protective.
Yeah.
I think one of my greatest joys has been, I've been at the dining table with Atalji's family, with at times the NSA, then walking in. I've seen all that, and I was what, 25, 26.
Yeah. You're very young, I know.
I was. And I remember I was shooting something, and we call him Babji. And Namita Didi, Gunu Didi would possibly one day, she never speaks, she's a very private person. And I remember he was then the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be home for dinner. And I was shooting something in Lakshmi Studio in Noida, what is currently Noida. And I was shooting again an anchor-based show, pregnant with my baby. And for me, it was Babji. But for the country, he's the Prime Minister of India. And I remember me not landing up because I was shooting a stock for my producer so that after I have the baby, I get a 10-day break. I didn't know the producer was making me shoot through the last day of my pregnancy so that he could replace me.
Oh.
So I got sacked. I made the stock and they sacked me because they wanted somebody who was very glamorous or somebody who doesn't have a baby. So I've been through all that. And in the middle of all that, I suddenly realized that I'm late for dinner. Now, I'm not telling anybody who I'm having dinner with because the whole family is waiting. And Smriti Irani. And I remember it's like 8:45, 9 o'clock or something, not eaten all day. And I get a call and Babji's on the other line. And he's like, "Aren't you supposed to eat?" So Babji, listen, this is like, I have to work. I have a contract. And, I need to kind of do this. Otherwise, I'm making sure that I have a job. I think what is fascinating is that I'm speaking to the Prime Minister, but I'm telling him I need to protect my turf. Because I'm having a baby, I need to afford it. I have to pay a house loan. And he's very patiently listening to all this. He said, "कहाँ भेजो?" मैंने कहा, नहीं कुछ मत भेजना है यहाँ पे, वरना पता चल जाएगा कि मैं आपको जानती हूँ. So I said, पता नहीं चलना
Most
चाहिए.
women would be showing off that the Prime Minister's house did.
I never did. I'm
But
very
weren't
happy.
you already in politics by then?
I was.
You were.
I was. But like I said, I've had an ideological relationship which went beyond politics with the organization, many organizational leaders. And I'd worked in the VHP. I'd worked here, Sector 8, mein, there is a establishment of the RSS. So I'd pitter pattered around. Many people knew that, but not people in the mainstream at that time. To say you're a Swayam Sevak in the media is a death knell for your career. So I was also advised, bolna mat, naukri chali jayegi. And I still remember after 1 hour, somebody knocking on the studio door to say, iska khana aaya hai.
He said.
And the producer was livid. Ki, what is this? You know, it's a very well-known producer. I say, kya hai? Khana aaya matlab kya hai? Abhi ye 1 ghanta free nahi hai. And that's when the guy stepped up and said, listen, I am coming from here and here. And I need to deliver the food to her, then I can go. That's the first time the producer knew. आपने पहले क्यों नहीं बताया? I said, अरे क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है? So there were 4 anchors, 4 programs that we were doing for the producer. One was anchored by me, another one was by Veer Sanghvi, another one was by Karan Thapar, another one was by a lady. And for me, it was like just a regular job.
So you get into politics, like electoral politics.
I served as the USAID and WHO ambassador to India. So if somebody Googles, they'll find me somewhere in 2002 or 2001 introducing ORS with zinc in the country. So that was my mandate at that time.
Yeah, everybody's Googled it because there are so many controversies with your name कि USAID कहाँ पे, Yale कहाँ पे, ये कहाँ पे, वो कहाँ पे. So सारा documentation, Delhi University की degree that you had done first year, that was so. Do you remember there was that unpurred tag with you?
The unpurred tag was also because you're 36. First, that your party sends you twice to Rajya Sabha, and you're not this docile, starry interventionist. You're a very, very hardcore political activist, which is quite a pain for if I'm on the opposing side.
Yeah.
And I did get opportunities from my party to be more than vehement or articulate the party's position across debates. And suddenly, how do you bring down such a woman? You say that she has 0 brains. And it kind of marries into this presumption because she's been an actor before, she's been a part of the media. So when I came in 2014 into a position of service, I was very mindful of the fact that I need to, on policy issues, contribute. I know, given my background in the media, how to handle the media. I chose not to.
Why?
Because that was not my politics. I did not want to be those who whisper in the corridors of power. I genuinely wanted to contribute because I know how to create imagery if I so desire in the media. I was never that kind of a I was never that kind of a media personality also. I still remember Sasbahu began this big reporter who did only media news, soap news, and very, very popular journalist. And I remember him calling me in 2000, telling me if I didn't give an exclusive about my marriage, he would create havoc and write nasty articles about me.
Seriously?
Yeah. He knows who he is. And he won't mind my exposing his name, Vicky Lalwani. And I banged the phone down. I said, write whatever the hell you want because I'll be known for my acting and the success of my show and not for your article. So I'd done that before. And for 7 years, I never spoke to him. I've never given an interview to him in those 7 years that the show was a hit. And the publication knew that you would never get anything if he wants a quote or an interview with Smriti Irani.
Did that happen in politics too? Political journalists?
Yes.
Threatening you that if you don't give the exclusive?
No. I think it was also about certain journalists recognizing that I did not pander to a particular coterie. So it did happen to me from that perspective. So if I'm not a part of the darbar, then I'm supposed to be stripped of my dignity. That did happen.
I'm going to come to that part about journalists. You can choose to answer, not answer, because you're this, what should I say? There are so many
I think, Smita, I've made it.
Controversies, favorite child.
I have made it.
Yeah.
In media and politics. There are very few people who've made it in multiple fields. and genuinely with a sense of modesty, I'm saying this because women tend to not declare their victories. We are trained from a very early age to be very, very modest.
Yeah.
Not claim our victories, not talk about our ambitions. But it is a fact that my record in Indian television is till now unchallenged. The standards we had set, both me and Ekta, are till date unchallenged. In fact, when she won her recent Emmy, she messaged me. She said, "Listen, you're opening the door even at Emmys." I said, "See?" When I came into politics, I think one of the greatest achievements at that age, at around 34, 35, to be handpicked by Modi. Not many people know that my Rajya Sabha, when you're signing your papers so that you can get elected to Rajya Sabha, the proposer on number one on top is Narendra Modi.
Even though you had sat on a dharna at one point of time for a short period
I'm
against
the
him.
one living example of how benevolent, genuinely forgiving, and pragmatic the Prime Minister is as a human being. Much is said about him as an administrator. I think this whole angle to his persona of being this tough administrator, there is a side to him as a human being which is not often spoken about. I think many people don't encourage that conversation because it breaks that myth that they try to create that this is a man who is driven by ambition, doesn't have the heart in the right place. I have seen him worry about his colleagues, about his seniors, about his juniors, their family challenges. I mean, the Prime Minister could very well say, "Aaj time nahi hai."
When you went to for your father.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Smriti, I'm a bit busy. The office could call back and say, the Prime Minister knows that my father is not ideologically inclined.
But there are people who say stories about him that he's unforgiving to some people who he thinks carried an agenda against him
Yeah, but
during
I
the
didn't
2000s.
I didn't have an agenda.
You didn't, yeah.
So I think that's what made my case a
The
bit
first time you
different.
met him was when he was chief minister already?
2002. There's a photograph of that as well.
Or when you met him?
In a stadium in Ahmedabad.
In 2002?
I think India Today has that photograph. So if you Google it, you'll find that photograph. Me standing in bar right next to me. And
is it true that you were told that disciplinary action would be taken against you for that that demonstration that you were in against Narendra Modi?
I think you need to wait for if someday, which I don't think will happen because as Atalji never wrote, I'm not Pranab Mukherjee nor his daughter, so I will not be writing a tell-all book. I will only say this, that whatever transpired then is to the best of my knowledge and the knowledge of everybody who was a decision maker and everybody who was in an administrative capacity. And I think that from a personal perspective, I saw a whole new side of my politics, my organization, and especially my leadership. So many people thought in Delhi that I had arrived on the political scene in 2014 because I fought the Gandhi Scion. But I've been in politics since I was 26, 25 years old. And which means that it's a good 23 years behind me.
Yeah, that's true. Because in 2014, do you remember that? Of course, you will remember when Priyanka Gandhi said Smriti who?
And I think it took, for me, I literally, if you ever have a tape of that, I literally had tears in my eyes because the Prime Minister was indignant. I also feel that at times he realizes that when you come from a background where you face so many challenges, he has that very protective feeling for everybody he has seen who struggles through life, who will work on the merit of an issue and not follow an agenda. He'd not even had that conversation with me that, you've been sought to be humiliated. How does a party defend you? He took it upon himself to come in 2014 in Amethi. And everybody said I was losing. So to have his last Lok Sabha campaign speech in Amethi was significant. He could have gone to a seat where there was a sure shot victory assured for the party. One, he chose Amethi, irrespective of everybody telling him she's losing. Don't bother. I remember Parikar Again, I was the
former defense minister. Yeah, for the, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
I have a different way of possibly communicating about him because I was the political prabhari of Goa when he became the
okay.
CM. I was also the political prabhari of Goa when Narendra Modi was declared the prime ministerial candidate of BJP. So many people don't see that part of my journey. And I remember, and I was in 2003 the vice president of BJP Yuva Morcha in Maharashtra. Dharmendra Pradhan was the national president. So one of the first people to call me and said, I want you to come to Delhi, Malvankar Hall, give a speech. And I was like, I have never given a political speech in the organization. So he made me stand there and say, speak. And my first political speech publicly was Madan Lal Khurana telling me in Purani Delhi, speak. And I said, but what do you want me to say? So Siddharth Nath Singh, who was at that time part of Arunji's team of people trying to help support and get media attention. So I remember Siddharth writing a note and saying, Khurana ji ne kaha, ye aap bolna
former
chahiye.
chief minister.
Yeah. So he said,
just in case people don't know who Madan Lal Khurana is.
It's sad if people don't, I think there's a lot of...
There are a number of expat viewers also,
yes.
right?
Yes, so my apologies for that.
No,
there is
fine.
a generational shift which doesn't know much.
And also remember, your party has not been in power in this city for since Madan Lal ji, since so many.
So I woke up in Purani Delhi in that speech. Siddharth has given me a page and I'm like, Khurana ji is like, bolo. And suddenly Siddharth takes that page away and tears it. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, are you crazy? He said, speak. So you cannot be somebody who speaks out of a page, can you? I said, no. He said, then speak your mind. So I think that training makes me what I am today.
To come back to that Amethi election, when Priyanka Gandhi just struck me suddenly that when she said Smriti who to you.
It's the Prime Minister who answered and said, Meri choti behan hai.
And then the
which
Prime
was very
Minister,
magnanimous of him.
Remember at that time he said something to the effect when somebody said about Priyanka Gandhi, he said, Meri beti ke samhan hai or something like that. And to which she turned around and he said, and when he said that, Narendra Modi ne kaha aap unke beti ke saman hai, so a journalist asked, to which she turned around and says, Mere pitaji Rajiv Gandhi hai.
I don't want to kind of in any way reflect on the pettiness of that answer.
But they didn't have any clue at that stage.
No, I think that it's a reflection of genuinely. One expects that when you have such political exposure, when you've seen the elegance of politics in your life journey, you would have a modicum of it. The fact that you basked in that political elegance and that glory and did not have basic manners speaks volumes. So you can differ with each other on many issues. Can you do it respectfully? Because there is a generation of political activists that want to emulate you. So when, like I said, when you caricature the Vice President of India, you are sending a message that there is a political audience for it. Even if the audience member is Rahul Gandhi. What was Kalyan Banerjee doing? Knowing that Rahul Gandhi is filming him. He was working towards endearing himself to the audience called the Gandhi family. So if Ms. Vadra was being petty about Prime Minister Modi, I'm not shocked. I mean, I.N.D.I.A, and this is again publicly available, she gathered a group of youngsters to abuse the Prime Minister. जो हम हिंदी में कहते हैं माँ बहन की गाली देने के लिए. अब ये भी भूल जाओ कि आप नरेंद्र मोदी को गाली दिलवा रहे हो, आप बच्चों से वो बुलवा रहे हो. That tells you the kind of human being that you're dealing with. हमारे यहाँ पे आप दुश्मन को भी पानी पिलाते हो ना, ये संस्कार है. तो क्या आप इस तरह से बातचीत कर... I don't expect any better. So I don't comment on it. I mean, you've asked me, so I've said it.
But it's like those two elections were very bitterly fought. 2019 as well as 2014.
Bitterly fought by whom?
By both sides. I mean, for you it was also mooch ki ladai, dono mooch.
नहीं, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं. मैं आपको difference बताती हूँ.
Because you were like,
जब आप कहते हो ना मूछ की लड़ाई है, जब आप कहते हो कि bitterly fought, जब आप हारते हो तब आप उस इलाके के लिए कुछ नहीं करते. And I am the one evidence कि मैं 2014 हारी अमेठी में, बट एवरी टाइम आई वेंट टू द प्राइम मिनिस्टर कि साहब मेरे यहाँ पे इस इलाके में मुझे ये मदद चाहिए, इससे ये चीज़ें होंगी, जनता को ये सहूलियत मिलेगी. अगर कोई वहाँ पे किसी का बच्चा मिडल ईस्ट में यूक्रेन की वॉर में फंसा है, एक एक उस केस के लिए भी मुझे सोल्यूशन मिला है. तो अगर बदले की भावना से या मूंछ की लड़ाई वो होती तो उस इलाके की मदद नहीं करते. जहाँ पे बीजेपी की लास्ट रैली हुई 14 की, मेरी बहन को वोट दो ये बोला प्रधानमंत्री ने, नहीं होता वहाँ पे. The amount of work Prime Minister Modi did for Amethi, he meant when he said हम बदले के नहीं बदलाव की राजनीति लाएं.
But it is quite clear that Gandhi family
ये
को
चाहते
अमेठी में
हैं.
हराना is a BJP goal to defeat
देखो,
Sonia
फर्क
Gandhi
ये
in
है,
Raebareli in 2024
देखिए
will be a goal.
फर्क ये है
हाँ.
कि हम कांग्रेस के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष से लड़े और मैं बीजेपी की सामान्य कार्यकर्ता थी. तब तो मेरे पास कोई उपाधि नहीं थी. अब आप कह सकते हैं आप कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर हैं. आई वाज नोबडी. यूपीए की अध्यक्षा सोनिया गांधी, सत्ता सपा की, ठीक 14 में. तो यू हैव टू बी genuinely having a death wish to fight that establishment. 19 में भी पेडिग्रीड इतने लोगों की सोच हो गई थी, लेकिन किसी ने ये नहीं देखा कि हमने कांग्रेस के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष को हराया जो भारत के राजनीतिक इतिहास में कभी नहीं हुआ. किसने हराया? मुनीरका में तबेले के ऊपर रहने वाली लड़की जो पिता के साथ धौला कुआं में चद्दर के ऊपर सड़क पे किताबें बेचती थी.
That is one part of your life, but then everybody says कि चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए स्मृति ईरानी राहुल गांधी का नाम लाएगी ही.
नहीं, आपने अगर मुझे पूछा तो मैं जवाब ना दूं तो हेडलाइन
नहीं,
ये होगा
मेरे साथ
स्मृति
तो
ईरानी ने राहुल गांधी पे बोलने से इनकार कर दिया. दिस चिड़वी मेरी पड़वी मेरी पॉलिटिक्स, कांट हेल्प इट. दूसरी बात ये होती है कि आप तमाचे मारे जाओ, फिर आपको अरे तुमने जवाब कैसे दे दिया. तो अगर आपने प्रधानमंत्री के खिलाफ अपशब्द कहे हैं और हम जवाब दे दें तो हमने जवाब दे दिया, वो हेडलाइन हो गई. अरे गाली बकी है भाई. आई हैव सीन, आई हैव डन 15 years of my politics in Gujarat. I have seen the Prime Minister's mother not being spared. She had nothing to do with politics. For what? So every time they could not attack Modi, they attacked his colleagues, they attacked his ideology, they attacked his family. They didn't play fair, but they want you to be answerable for every response you gave. How fair is that?
And he's still being attacked for
Every
his
day.
Yeah, for his for his marriage that he has not done enough. Not
My
kept
issue
up
is
Yeah.
I'm not bringing up anybody's marriage, anybody's separation, anybody's personal life. What does your country, men and women or children or any gender expect of you? Tell me, how are you delivering on issues of governance, right? If I digress from it, am I productively contributing? And my entire life, my political life of fighting from Amethi, I have never gotten into the Gandhi's personal life. My issue is, give me on issues of governance, what did you do? Give me a response on all the promises you made. Answer why you've taken up the land of the distressed and not returned it back when it was rightfully, legally not yours.
But they got into your personal life, your daughter's case, when that happened in Goa, the Silly Souls Cafe. That got you
16-year-old.
Yeah.
16-year-old. They went after a 16-year-old girl to destroy a child because they couldn't handle the attack from the mother. And I have not even digressed into it that Mrs. Gandhi has a grandchild of her own. Who is the girl? Because that's not my politics. That is a typical Gandhi Khandan, mafioso kind of politics. But I can promise you this. Because of that one thing that they did to my 16-year-old kid, I am hell-bent for the rest of my life. If Rahul Gandhi comes into Amethi, he will lose. Does not matter whether I am the BJP candidate or not. The Gandhis will never win Amethi again. That is my only response. They will never win.
Because not just political.
They went after a 16-year-old kid who had nothing to do with politics. They knew they are destroying the life of a kid, of a girl, that it can have implications for a child. They didn't care.
What's happened to that legal case now?
It's still on, so I can't talk about it.
Okay.
They made 2 middle-aged men sit there and talk about a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. I'm very clear. The case is on. judgment, the first version that came in terms of the observation of the court, are very scorching against the Congress party. A kid who has nothing that she ever did in politics or in social life.
What is
A
the
kid who was
conversation
studying.
back at home when something like this happens? Do they say that it's part and
My
parcel?
kids went through a lot of, and I don't talk about them anymore in public. Because even when I was Minister Education, I remember maths paper was very tough. In one of the 10th boards, my son was giving his 10th exam. They घेराउड him to say, तुम्हारी मम्मी ने पेपर सेट किया है. Your 10th standard का बच्चा. You're giving the exam. And he comes home and he says, so you don't talk to your kids about your politics. They don't want to do anything with your politics. But you know the consequences and the price they pay.
Regrets?
For what happened to my kids, it's a choice I made. They bear the consequences of it. I remember my kid being ragged and the principal calling and saying, होता है life में, लड़का अगर परेशान कर रहा है तो deal with it. Why? Because they're Smriti Irani's kids. Anybody else's daughter getting physically harassed would have support. No. My kid was told, deal with it. And this is a second degree black belt who has won laurels for her country. If you look at the Limca Book of Records, both my kids are mentioned there for the medal hall. I never turn up for any of their contests. My son played under 16, under 15, went for trials in Delhi. I made the mistake of picking him up. And
a normal thing for a normal family, right?
And he was chucked out. And I never had that conversation with him. But I know I cost him his cricketing career.
But why? I mean, most people say that cricket may, because of political pull, people go ahead.
Ulta. I was called and I was asked, इसलिए कर रहे हो क्या ताकि इसको कॉलेज में एडमिशन मिल जाए? मैंने कहा नहीं साहब, हम गलती से पिकअप करने गए थे बच्चे को. और ये बच्चा ऑलरेडी मार्शल आर्ट्स में इस देश के लिए खिताब पा चुका है. लिम्का बुक ऑफ रिकॉर्ड्स देखें तो बिना मेरे नाम के उसका नाम है दोनों बच्चों का. I have cost my kids their career, the peace of mind.
Is it because you're a woman politician? Is it because you took on the Gandhis? Do other women politicians tell you that
I don't
they
think it's
face
about
it?
the woman politician bit. I think it's got to do with the fact that I'm blunt, that I should be more docile. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a woman.
Well, Mohitra says the same thing, that
No, I've never played the gender card. I think that case is different. It's about corruption.
But she
And
says
when you use your gender to hide your corruption, that is the greatest disservice you do.
she blames the
agenda.
BJP for the same thing, that they don't know how to appreciate woman power. And
that's why they make a woman the finance minister and the president of India.
You speak your mind, which everybody knows you do. So
there's a cost to pay for everything that you do in
Does your
life.
party tell you at any time that pipe down?
No.
Have they ever told
No.
you that? No.
Never.
Like, I mean, I would guess there are male politicians who jump the gun in both.
I don't jump the gun.
You don't.
I don't. I'm mindful of my party's legacy. I'm mindful of my party's future. I'm mindful of the struggles that the party had to undergo, and especially Narendra Modi to be where he is today. I'm mindful of the contribution, let's say, of Amit Shah, of Nitin Gadkari. I was state secretary when Nitin Gadkari was president Maharashtra. He became national president. In Rajnath Singh's tenure, I was a national secretary. I've served twice in this organization as national secretary. Under Nitinji, I also served as the National Women's Wing's president. So Sangathan mein, I've been there like
Correct.
2 decades.
But do you, because of the various...
And because I worked so closely with all of them, even including now, the deceased Manohar Parrikar. When BJP says party parivar hai, it is not some hyped disclaimer.
You know, I'm
or a
going
byline.
to go into several controversies, and the reason I'm doing that, Smriti ji, is because many times...
Now you're my dance teacher from school, so you can't call me Smriti ji.
So the reason I'm doing it is because
Not that I dance, but
okay. No. Oh God, now I'm like regretting telling you this.
tell me the controversies.
So let's go into it one by one. One is, do you remember that cylinder thing where they called you Cylinderella? They were referring to that one time that you sat in
It
protest
was in
against the.
Dharmtala in West Bengal, Kolkata, where I sat in protest against the UPA.
It's not the
And
protest. Yeah.
I am not the petroleum minister. They know it.
I'm
You
not
see
talking.
no, I know. So I know of the whole cylinder photograph and
No,
every
no,
time
no.
it happens.
What I want to come to it is because of the misogyny element. I want to come to this part where this one congressman who says, Irani is making a lot of statements these days. I want to tell her that the old gas cylinder she used to carry in 2013-14, we found that and brought it for 21,000 rupees and we'll gift it to her. Have you got that cylinder?
No, I haven't. But that shows that the man is genuinely, anyways, wouldn't want to use unconstitutional words against him. But if Irani goes back to January 2014, the gas cylinder was 1,240 bucks. In Modi's Raj right now in Ujjwala, it's 600 bucks. When Irani was sitting in protest, 9 crore women who are poor never had Ujjwala. When Irani's leader became the Pradhan Sevak of the country, now over 9 crore women have a cylinder. And if you look at Ujjwala 2, the stove, the pipe, all of that is provided for by Government of India. So I know that the person who has done this possibly is looking at some goodie points with the Gandhi family, but is genuinely not informed.
But he didn't stop at that. I'm coming to the misogyny part where he's saying that, they've said this about the Manmohan Singh government. He said inflation was making them a dying. The BJP leaders are doing the work of the same inflation. They sit in the bedroom by making it a darling. You can very well figure out
So
this
is
Diane
just-
and this
No, no,
bedroom.
So this is just a very normal Congress way of attacking. I've had pictures made of me where I've been stripped, caricatures made of me where I'm wearing clothes which are possibly not befitting my normal way of life. Most of the men who attack me and sexualize their attack are always promoted by the Congress party. So they'll either become state presidents or they'll find a national role. So when I look at the congressmen who do this, I know they're doing it as a part of career progression. They're not doing it because they believe in some issue. I know that they know this is the best way of getting the attention of the Gandhis.
Do you really think that it's just
Otherwise, if you're genuinely somebody who talks about women in this fashion, would you genuinely see them promoted?
or is it that because you go on attacking Rahul Gandhi, so and that's why,
Whatever. It's a reflection on the Gandhis, not on me.
and all those the memes that come your way, the social
I
media
think that
attacks.
if you look at even the Gandhi family, the Vadra extended family had a family member who made Shehzad brother, who made many public pronouncements about me, sexualized an attack on me, which then became public knowledge in an interview, and suddenly people in Lutyens were shocked. Ki, Arey, isne aise kar diya? But that is Priyanka Vadra's extended in-law family. So they've always promoted such elements.
Why? Why
Why
is
me?
it that? Why you?
Because I'm articulate in my attack. I don't mince words, and I'm unforgiving when it comes to the attack.
Do you at times feel that that you take offense to things which may not have been offensive, might have been done generally, like when somebody said "Dear Smriti,"
Because
the Bihar.
it was never said with the indicative value of showing respect. There is a difference. You remember Kanhaiya Lal in Mother India? Do you remember Mother India? Radharani.
Acha, okay.
And there is a sant saying Radharani. There's a huge difference. And we working women know.
No, huh.
So I knew.
And the flying kiss that Rahul Gandhi gave.
He gave it in the house. My position was never that it was intended towards me. My position was that the house, there's an expectation of a particular conduct. So whatever he did again is a reflection on his upbringing and his sense of how much he values Parliament. It has nothing to do with me.
I'm going to. I started with the question, but then I left it. We were talking about your run-ins
With whom?
with journalists.
Oh.
So I will give you 3 instances. It's up to you if you want to speak on 1, 2, 3, or none at all. There's one in which this year you got irritated by one reporter and said, "I'll speak to your owners."
I was not a reporter, firstly.
Huh.
Very clear. Somebody positioned themselves. So every time I go to Amethi, there's this new, I think, some bright child in
Stringer, I
the
think,
Congress
no?
party.
Huh.
No, not a stringer as well. The publication, in fact, gave out कि ये fake है. So some bright child in the Congress party locally thought and said कि ना राहुल जी को स्मृति जी को ना पहले से पता था कि राहुल जी लड़ने वाले हैं 19 का चुनाव, इसलिए उनकी पहले से तैयारी थी. अब हम लास्ट मिनट बताएंगे कि गांधी खानदान से कौन लड़ रहा है तो स्मृति जी विल बी शॉक्ड कि अरे ये नाम कहाँ से आया. दैट इज़ हाउ स्टूपिड थिंग्स आर. So somebody is always positioned to video record me. Always. And I know it as a political fact. And my organization locally also knows it कि कोई ना कोई ऐसे दिया जाएगा जो reports back to the local congress कि दीदी ने आज ये किया ये किया ये किया. Snip chat, everything will happen. So some kid was put up to say आपको ऐसा करा. मैंने कहा आप पत्रकार हूँ, आप बात नहीं. I knew he's not a पत्रकार, firstly. He claimed to be from a newspaper. I know 550 journalists who are there only in the district of Amethi. I know each of them by name. I know each one's beat, including if they're running a YouTube channel. So I know that kid who's talking to me is not an officiating patrakar of one of the biggest Hindi newspapers in the country. So I said, आप हैं? नहीं बात होगी. मैं हूँ. Finally said, ठीक है, आप हैं ना? मैं आपके मालिक से बात करती हूँ. ठीक है. What was his position for? He was misbehaving with a woman when the cameras were not rolling. And I told him, don't misbehave with this girl. I have 5 assembly segments. One is Salon. Salon is in district Raebareli, but Lok Sabha Amethi. It's one of those unique. He said, हाँ Salon की है तो क्या हुआ? I said, कहीं की भी हो, don't misbehave with her. And I walked off. That's when he said, चलो मैं आपसे सवाल पूछता हूँ. So I knew it was a fake guy. The newspaper tweeted this guy is fake.
Which people said you probably
Why would a
twisted.
newspaper say that it's fake when you can easily find out whether somebody's on the roll or not? Let's presume that I'm such a big persona that everybody will succumb to my will. Why would a old newspaper hit their own credibility by lying? A lie which you can find out because everybody has a salary slip. Then somebody bright enough said, इसका अभिनंदन करते. मैंने कहा चलो इसकी लाइफ तो सेट हो गई. किसी को लगा होगा कि चलो ये political tool बन जाएगा.
लेफ्ट लिबरल मीडिया में जो नौकरी मिल जाएगी.
Which is fine.
Okay.
As long as अमेठी में सबका भरा हो जाए, मुझसे बुरा बन के हो जाए, अच्छा बन के हो जाए, मेरी मंशा यही है, सबका भला.
उसको नौकरी मिल जाएगी. Okay, the second one was when Sudhir Chaudhary at that conclave, he asked you about the menu in your home or rasoi mein kya pakta. He was talking about tomato prices, if I'm not mistaken, at that time.
I wanted to
And
talk
you spoke
about
jail. His jail time.
No. The issue is, I wanted to speak about the price stabilization fund. I wanted to speak of market capacities, ENAM, availability, ecological impact on production of tomato, how supply chains in 2 states which at that time and still are Congress ruled, Himachal and Karnataka, and what happened to the supply chain there, how local administrative agricultural management had failed the farmer there. He didn't want to talk about it. The other problem is, Smita, like you